Daniel stood at the edge of the alien station's great hall, his eyes drawn to the lights that shimmered across the ceiling like stars frozen in glass. The place was alive with voices, dozens of languages mixing together in a strange kind of harmony. He had been here for 2 months as part of the human diplomatic mission, yet every day still felt like stepping into a dream. Aliens from across the galaxy passed through these halls, each with their own colors, movements, and customs. It was a place meant for unity, though Daniel sometimes felt like a small piece of something far too large. That was when he saw her. She was standing with a group of her people, tall and graceful, her skin carrying a soft silver tone that caught the light in a way no human skin ever could. Her long hair shimmered with faint streaks of blue, and her eyes carried a depth that seemed older than the station itself. Daniel had heard of her species, the Ariseth, beings known for their calm voices and careful ways. They were a people who never acted without meaning, never spoke without purpose. Yet the young woman looked different. Her gaze was not distant or cold, but curious, as if she wanted to reach out and touch the world around her. Daniel realized he was staring and quickly looked away. Still, his thoughts refused to let her go. Later, when the hall grew quieter, he found himself walking past the gardens that stretched near the observation deck. The Ariseth were known for caring for those gardens, shaping plants into elegant designs that climbed the walls like living art. And there she was again, kneeling by a glowing flower, her fingers brushing its petals. He hesitated before speaking. "It's beautiful," he said softly, afraid his voice might disturb her. She turned, her eyes locking onto his. For a moment, he wondered if he had broken some rule, but instead of anger, he saw a gentle smile form on her lips. "Yes," she replied in careful English. Her accent was strange, but her words were clear. "It listens when you touch it. The plant knows who cares for it." Daniel stepped closer, the air between them filled with the quiet hum of the station. "Back on Earth we have flowers too. They don't listen, though. At least, not like that." She tilted her head. "Maybe they do, but humans do not notice." Her tone was not sharp, only thoughtful, as if she was honestly considering the idea. There was silence between them, but it did not feel uncomfortable. Daniel found himself studying her more closely, noticing the delicate patterns along her skin, like faint silver lines that almost glowed when the light touched them. She seemed fragile in some ways, yet there was a strength in her posture, a calm confidence that made him unsure of what to say next. "I am Sarah," she finally said, her voice steady. "Daniel," he replied, offering his hand out of habit. It was something so normal for him, so human, that he only realized too late it might not be right for her culture. Yet instead of refusing, Sarah looked at his hand with wide eyes, as though it carried more weight than he understood. Slowly, she raised her own hand and touched his fingers lightly. Her skin was cool, softer than he imagined, and the moment stretched longer than it should have. When she pulled away, there was something unreadable in her expression. She looked almost startled, though not in fear, more like someone who had discovered something unexpected. "You are different," she said quietly. Daniel gave a small laugh, trying to ease the tension. "So are you." Her lips curved into another smile, small but real, before she looked back at the glowing flower. "Maybe we will speak again." He nodded, though inside he felt a strange pull, as if something had shifted in the air. When he finally left the garden, his thoughts were no longer on the station, the mission, or the countless voices in the great hall. They were on her, the silver-skinned woman with eyes like deep water, who had touched his hand as if it meant far more than he could ever know that night. As he lay in his quarters staring at the stars beyond the glass, he could not forget the feeling of her fingers brushing against his. It was such a simple thing, something so common among humans, yet it lingered in his mind with surprising weight. He told himself it was nothing, just a meeting, just a moment. Still, part of him wondered why her smile kept returning to his memory, and why her quiet words seemed to echo in his thoughts. Daniel did not know it then, but what had started as A simple greeting would soon change everything. For in Sierra's world, a touch was never just a touch. The next day on the station began like all others, yet Daniel found his thoughts drifting back to Sarah. The memory of the garden, the quiet way she had looked at him, and the soft coolness of her touch refused to leave his mind. He told himself he was only curious, that he wanted to understand her people better for the sake of the mission. But deep down he knew it was more than that. Something about her had stirred a feeling he had not expected to find so far from Earth. Daniel's duties as part of the human delegation kept him busy. He spent the morning assisting with reports, helping organize communications, and observing the endless negotiations between alien groups. The station was always alive with politics, every meeting filled with arguments about trade, defense, or territory. To many, it was exhausting. But Daniel had always managed to find some excitement in learning how other civilizations lived. Today, however, the debates seemed dull, as if his mind refused to hold them. By the afternoon, he found himself wandering again, his steps carrying him unconsciously back toward the gardens. The quiet hum of the station softened there, replaced by the faint sound of flowing water and the glow of alien plants climbing the walls. And there she was, kneeling once again by the strange flowers, her hair catching the light in faint blue strands. Sarah turned when she heard his footsteps, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then a faint smile appeared, small and delicate. "You came back," she said. Daniel gave a half-smile of his own. "Maybe I just like the gardens. Or maybe you like the one who cares for them," she replied softly, though there was no teasing in her tone. Her words were calm, simple, yet they carried a weight that made him pause. "I suppose both," Daniel admitted after a moment, feeling awkward but honest. Sarah returned to tending the plant, her long fingers brushing the petals with almost reverent care. "Humans are strange," she said. "You move quickly with your words, your gestures, your emotions. My people take much longer. We are careful." Daniel sat down on a stone bench nearby, watching her. "Maybe we rush because life feels short to us. We don't want to waste time." She looked at him then, her silver eyes holding his with quiet curiosity. "How short?" "On Earth, if someone lives to 100 years, that is considered long," Daniel explained. "But most never reach that." Her gaze lingered on him as if measuring the truth of his words. "For us, 100 years is still our youth. We do not choose bonds until much later. We wait until we are certain." The word bonds caught Daniel's attention. "You mean relationships?" She nodded slowly. "Partnerships, a union of two souls. It is rare, and once it happens, it cannot be undone." Daniel felt his chest tighten slightly at the seriousness in her voice. He realized then why she had reacted so strongly the previous day when he had offered his hand. What seemed normal to him might have been something far deeper to her people. "Didn't mean to disrespect you yesterday," he said quickly, wanting to make it clear. For humans, a handshake is just a greeting, a way of showing trust. Sarah tilted her head, studying him as though weighing his honesty. "I believe you," she said after a pause. "But still, when I touched your hand, it was not the same for me. It felt important." Daniel found himself at a loss for words. He had expected curiosity, perhaps even suspicion, but not this quiet openness. Her honesty touched him in a way he could not explain. For a while, neither of them spoke. The garden lights shifted as the artificial day cycle changed, painting the plants in softer shades. Daniel felt strangely at peace sitting there, as though the station's noise had faded into the background. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "Tell me of your world," she said. "What do humans love most?" Daniel thought about it. "We love stories," he answered. "We tell them about everything, our past, our hopes, even our fears. They help us understand who we are." Her eyes softened. "Then tell me one." So Daniel did. He spoke of Earth's oceans, of sunsets that burned orange across the horizon, and of nights filled with endless stars. He described laughter shared between friends and the warmth of family gatherings. Sarah listened quietly, her expression calm but her eyes bright, as though each word painted colors she had never seen before. When he finished, she whispered, "Your people see beauty in simple things. That is rare." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I think your people see beauty, too, just in a different way." Their eyes met again, and for a moment the space between them seemed to shrink, filled with something unspoken. Daniel felt his heart beat a little faster, and he wondered if she could hear it. At last, Sarah rose gracefully to her feet. "I must go," she said softly. "My people will be waiting." Daniel stood as well, reluctant to see her leave. "Will I see you again?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Perhaps if you return to the gardens." And then she was gone, her silver figure disappearing down the hall. Daniel remained there, staring at the flowers she had tended, feeling the strange warmth of their conversation lingering in his chest. As he walked back to his quarters, he realized something had begun to change. He had come to the station as a representative, a voice for humanity, but now he found himself caring less about politics and more about one person. A single meeting had become two, and already he knew he wanted more. Daniel lay awake that night, the station's soft hum surrounding him, replaying Sarah's words in his mind. She had said their people bonded for life, that such things could not be undone. He told himself it was just culture, just difference. And yet, deep inside, he wondered what it meant that she had not refused his touch, that she had smiled when he returned. Something was beginning, and Daniel could feel it, though he did not yet understand how far it would go. Daniel woke the next morning with a strange sense of expectation. He told himself it was just another day on the station, another day of endless meetings and reports. But his mind betrayed him. It kept circling back to Sarah, the sound of her voice, the way her eyes lingered when she listened, the calm strength in her presence. He had never met anyone like her. She was quiet but not distant, gentle but not fragile. Everything about her seemed to carry meaning. When his duties were done, he once again found himself wandering toward the gardens. He tried to act casual, as if he had no plan, but the truth was clear. He hoped she would be there. And when he entered the soft glow of the garden, his heart quickened at the sight of her kneeling among the plants. This time, Sarah looked up immediately, as though she had been waiting. "Daniel," she said softly, his name shaped carefully on her lips. "Sarah," he answered with a smile, his voice carrying more relief than he intended. They walked together among the plants, their steps slow, their words unhurried. Daniel told her more about Earth, the mountains that cut across the skies, the forest that seemed endless, the sound of waves crashing against rocky shores. Sarah listened with her head slightly tilted, her eyes bright with curiosity. In return, she told him of her world, a place of long rivers that glowed beneath twin moons, and fields of silver grass that sang when the wind passed through them. She spoke of the patience of her people, how they believed every choice must be weighed carefully, for every choice shaped generations to come. Hours seemed to pass unnoticed as they shared their worlds. Yet it was not the stories alone that bound them, but the silences between words. Neither felt the need to rush, and still, each glance carried weight. At one point, Sarah faltered. She grew quiet, her expression troubled. Daniel noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked. Her silver eyes met his, uncertain. "There is a council meeting tomorrow. Many of my people will gather, and there will be pressure. Pressure for alliances. I do not enjoy these things." Daniel offered a small smile. "You don't have to enjoy them. Nobody really does." Her lips curved faintly, though it was not quite a laugh. "It is not so simple for us. My people expect me to choose carefully. My choices are watched." Daniel felt a pang of sympathy. "Then maybe, just for now, you don't have to think about them. Just be here." The words seemed to ease her worry, and she gave him a grateful look. He didn't think about the gesture that followed. It came naturally, the way humans comfort each other. Gently, he reached for her hand. Sarah froze. Her eyes widened, Her breath caught, and Daniel instantly realized his mistake. I'm sorry, he said quickly, pulling his hand back. It's just a human thing. We do it to show support, I didn't mean. But before he could finish, Sarah lifted her hand and caught his. She held it firmly, her skin cool and soft against his. Slowly, with deliberate care, she guided his hand to her chest, pressing it over her heart. Daniel's breath stopped. He could feel the steady rhythm beneath his palm, strong yet calm, each beat echoing in the quiet space between them. Sarah's eyes shone, and her voice trembled with emotion as she whispered a word in her own language. Daniel did not understand it, but the tone carried weight, deep and final like a vow. Then, in careful English, she said, "Husband." The word struck Daniel harder than anything he had ever heard. His mouth went dry. He searched her eyes, hoping for a sign that she was joking, but Sarah's expression was solemn, steady, filled with something he could not name. "Wait," Daniel managed, his voice breaking with shock. "Sarah, what do you mean?" Her hand stayed over his, holding it to her heart. "In my people's way, this is the bond. You gave your hand. I accepted. Now you are mine and I am yours." Daniel felt the blood rush to his head. He had only meant to comfort her, only meant to offer human warmth. But here it was something far more. His thoughts raced. If this was true, then he had just made a promise he did not even understand. "Sarah," he whispered, trying to find words. Among humans, a touch like this, it's not marriage, it's kindness, closeness, but not a binding vow. Her eyes softened, though she did not release his hand. "I know your people are different, but I do not regret this. My heart chose." Daniel stood frozen, torn between awe and fear. The station suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. What had been simple moments of curiosity and comfort had now become something larger, something permanent in her eyes. Finally, she let his hand fall, though her gaze never left him. "Do not fear, Daniel. You did not break me. You gave me what I wished for." Her words were quiet, almost tender, and then she turned, walking away into the shadows of the garden. Daniel remained rooted to the spot, his hand still tingling with the memory of her heartbeat. "Husband." The word echoed in his mind, impossible to ignore. He had come to the station as a diplomat, just a young human among many species. Now, with one simple gesture, he had stepped into a world of meaning he barely understood. As he finally left the gardens, his steps unsteady, one thought kept circling in his mind. What have I done? The following morning, Daniel walked through the halls of the station with a heavy mind. Sleep had been impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt again the steady rhythm of Sarah's heartbeat beneath his hand, and he heard her voice, calling him husband. The word haunted him, both beautiful and terrifying. He had not meant for this to happen, yet now it felt like he had stepped across a line that could not be undone. At first, he thought perhaps Sarah would treat it as a private thing, a secret between the two of them. But he realized how wrong he was when he entered the main hall later that day. Conversation slowed as he passed. Alien eyes followed him, some curious, others cold. A few even inclined their heads slightly, as though acknowledging him in a way that was new, unfamiliar. Daniel frowned, confused. It was not until one of the human officers pulled him aside that he understood. "Daniel," the officer said, his voice low, "what did you do yesterday?" "What do you mean?" Daniel asked, his stomach tightening. "There are rumors spreading already. They say you bonded with an Araseth woman. Do you have any idea what that means?" Daniel's breath caught. The Bay station seemed to tilt around him. "I didn't. It was a misunderstanding," he stammered. "I didn't know." The officer shook his head grimly. "Well, her people believe it. And if she believes it, then so do they. Do you realize what kind of political storm this could cause?" Daniel was left speechless. The weight of the misunderstanding pressed on him harder than ever. He had thought of it only in terms of his feelings, his confusion, but now he saw the larger truth. This was no longer just between him and Sarah. Entire factions would react to it. Later that evening, Daniel tried to find her. He walked into the gardens once more, his heart pounding, and there she was, waiting among the silver plants. She looked calm, but the faint light in her eyes told him she already knew the whispers had begun. "Sarah," Daniel began, his voice thick with urgency. "People are talking. They think we bonded. They think it's official." Her expression did not change. "Because it is," she said simply. Daniel stared at her. "You don't understand. This isn't how humans, It wasn't meant to be a vow. I was only trying to comfort you." Sarah stepped closer, her silver gaze steady. "Daniel, you gave me your hand. I gave you my heart. For us, that is not comfort. That is choice." Frustration mixed with fear inside him. "But I didn't choose. Not like that. I don't even know what this means for your people." She tilted her head slightly, her voice calm but firm. "It means you are my partner. It means you are part of my family now. Some will welcome you, some will not. But the bond is real, and it cannot be undone." Daniel felt as though the walls were closing in. He had never wanted to hurt her, yet every word he spoke seemed to push against something sacred. He opened his mouth to protest again, but then he saw her face, the way her eyes softened when they looked at him. She did not see this as a mistake. She saw it as truth. "I don't know if I can live up to that," he admitted quietly, his voice breaking. "You already have," Sarah whispered. "When you spoke of your world, when you showed me kindness, when you touched me without fear, you are not like others. That is why my heart chose." Her words struck deep. Daniel's fear did not vanish, but something inside him stirred. Something he could not deny. Before he could reply, a sudden sound broke the quiet, a group of Ariseth entering the garden. Their eyes fell upon Daniel and Sarah, and in their gazes he saw both recognition and judgment. One of them, older and taller, stepped forward. "So it is true," the elder said, his voice low and resonant. "You have chosen a human." Sarah did not flinch. She straightened her shoulders and answered with calm strength. "Yes, I have chosen." The elder's eyes narrowed as they swept over Daniel. "Then let him prove he is worthy. The council will decide if this bond is to be honored." Daniel felt the weight of those words crash onto him like a storm. Prove himself? Council? He had no idea what any of it meant, but he understood one thing. This was far bigger than he had ever imagined. After the Ariseth left, Sarah turned back to him, her face softening again. "Do not be afraid," she said. "I will stand with you." Daniel wanted to believe her. He wanted to hold on to the calm certainty in her voice. But as he walked back to his quarters later, the whispers of the station followed him like shadows. What had begun as a touch in the garden was now a matter of honor, of politics, perhaps even of survival. And as he lay awake that night, staring at the endless stars beyond the glass, he realized there was no turning back. The bond was made, and now the entire station was watching. Daniel woke with a restless heart. He had not slept more than a few hours, his mind full of questions he could not answer. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sarah's face, calm and steady, and heard her voice calling him husband. Part of him wanted to run, to say it was all a mistake, that he never meant for this to happen, but another part of him, deeper and stronger, kept pulling him back toward her. The human delegation had already heard the rumors. Some of his colleagues looked at him with disbelief, some with quiet disapproval, and a few with curiosity. No one said much directly to him, but Daniel could feel the weight of their stares. To them, he had stepped outside his duty. He was not supposed to get personally involved with another species, let alone create a cultural bond that carried so much meaning. Later that day, he was summoned by the human ambassador. The older man leaned back in his chair, his expression heavy with concern. "Daniel, you've put us in a very delicate position," the ambassador said. "Do you understand what your actions mean?" Daniel's throat tightened. It wasn't intentional. I didn't know their customs. Intentional or not, the Ariseth believe you are bound to her, and more importantly, she believes it. If you reject this, you will insult her entire people. Do you realize what that could do to our relations here? Daniel lowered his head, guilt pressing down on him. So what do you want me to do? The ambassador sighed. That depends on you. You can step back, deny the bond, and leave it to us to manage the fallout. Or you can accept it and stand with her. But if you choose the second path, you're not just a diplomat anymore. You'll be part of her people. Their expectations will fall on you. Daniel left the meeting with his thoughts in chaos. Both paths seemed heavy with risk. If he stepped back, Sarah would be shamed, and he could not bear the thought of seeing her eyes filled with pain. If he accepted, he would be tied to a life he did not yet understand, surrounded by customs he could barely grasp. When he finally found Sarah in the gardens again, the sight of her eased some of the storm in his heart. She stood tall among the glowing flowers, her hands folded gently, her eyes calm when they fell on him. You look troubled, she said softly. Daniel let out a shaky breath. Everyone knows. The council, the humans, everyone. They're saying, I have to decide. If I stay with you, I'll be bound forever. If I walk away, I'll hurt you and maybe cause problems between our people. Sarah stepped closer, her silver eyes steady and unafraid. Then the question is not about them. The question is only this. Do you want to stand with me, Daniel? Her words silenced him. For a long moment, he could only stare at her. He thought of her smile, her patience, the way she listened to his stories as if they were treasures. He thought of the way she had trusted him enough to place his hand over her heart. He thought of how, despite the risks, being near her felt like the most natural thing in the universe, I'm afraid, he admitted at last, his voice breaking. I don't know your world, your ways. I don't know if I can be what you need me to be. Sarah reached out, her fingers brushing his hand gently. You are already what I need. You are human, and that is enough. Your people see life with passion. You act with your heart. That is why I chose you. I did not need you to be perfect. I only needed you to be you. Daniel felt a warmth spread through him at her words. The fear was still there, but it was no longer alone. Something stronger rose with it. Hope. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again with quiet resolve. Then I'll stand with you, he whispered. For the first time, he saw Sarah's composure break. Relief filled her eyes, and a soft smile spread across her lips. She clasped his hand firmly, her touch no longer hesitant. Then together, we will face whatever comes. But their moment of peace did not last. That evening, word came from the Ariseth Council. Daniel was to present himself before them in 3 days. There would be a trial, not of strength, but of spirit. If he was to be accepted as Sarah's partner, he would have to prove himself worthy in the eyes of her people. When Daniel heard the news, his chest tightened. A trial? He asked Sarah, worry etched across his face. She nodded, though her voice was steady. It is tradition. They will test your truth, your courage, your heart. It will not be easy, but I believe in you. Daniel swallowed hard. The weight of his choice settled fully on him now. He had taken the first step and there was no turning back. He would either prove himself or lose everything. That night, he lay awake once more. But this time the fear was mixed with determination. He thought of Sarah's hand in his, of the calm strength in her voice, and he knew he could not let her down. Whatever the trial demanded, he would face it. Not just for her people, but for her. The chamber of the Ariseth Council was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. It was vast and silent, lit by pale crystals that glowed softly along the walls. 12 elders sat in a circle, their silver eyes fixed on him as he entered. Their expressions were calm but unreadable, each face carrying the weight of centuries. Daniel felt very small in their presence, his human steps echoing too loudly against the polished floor. Sarah walked beside him until they reached the center. Then she stopped. Her hand brushed against his briefly, a quiet reassurance before she stepped back to stand among her people. Daniel was alone now, facing the full attention of the council. One of the elders spoke, his voice deep and measured. "You are Daniel of Earth. You have touched the heart of one of our own. Such a choice is sacred, and it is not taken lightly. To be accepted, you must prove yourself in the trial of union. Do you understand?" Daniel swallowed hard, his mouth dry. "I understand," he said, though in truth he did not know what awaited him. The elder nodded, and with a motion of his hand, the trial began. The first test was of endurance. Daniel was led into a chamber where the gravity was far stronger than on Earth. The Ariseth moved through it with ease, their bodies adapted to the strain. But Daniel felt as though the weight of the world had been dropped onto his shoulders. Each step burned through his legs. Each breath felt like lifting a stone. Yet he remembered Sarah's words, "I believe in you," and forced himself forward. Sweat poured from him. His muscles screamed, but he did not stop. When at last he reached the end of the chamber, the elders observed in silence, but Daniel caught a faint glimmer of approval in their eyes. The second test was of truth. Daniel stood before a crystal that shimmered with light. The elder explained, "This crystal responds to the heart. Speak lies and it darkens. Speak truth, and it glows." Daniel felt his pulse race. He was asked questions about himself, about his world, about his intentions with Sarah. Each time he answered honestly, the crystal brightened. When asked, "Do you fear the bond you have made?" Daniel hesitated, but then nodded. "Yes, I fear it," he admitted. The crystal glowed brighter, as if rewarding his honesty. "But I also want it. I don't fully understand it, but I know I don't want to lose her." The glow filled the chamber with warm light, and for the first time, Daniel saw the elders exchange quiet glances. The third test was of spirit. Daniel was led into a dark chamber where illusions filled the air. He saw visions of failure, of Sarah turning away from him, of his people condemning him. He heard voices whispering that he was weak, unworthy, alone. The weight of doubt pressed on him harder than gravity ever could. For a moment he felt ready to collapse. But then he remembered Sarah's eyes, the way she had looked at him without fear, without hesitation. He remembered her words, "I only needed you to be you." Holding on to that memory, he pushed forward through the illusions. He shouted into the darkness, "I'm not perfect, but I won't give up." The voices faded, the shadows broke apart, and the chamber filled with light once more. When the tests ended, Daniel stood before the council again, his body aching, his heart still pounding. He felt exhausted, but also strangely lighter, as though something inside him had shifted. The Tio, eldest of the council, rose. "You have endured," he said. "You have spoken truth even when it frightened you, and you have stood firm against doubt. These are not small things. These are the traits of one who can be trusted." Sarah stepped forward now, her eyes shining with quiet pride. She looked at Daniel as though nothing else in the world mattered. The elder turned to her. "Do you still choose him, knowing what he is, knowing he is human?" Sarah's voice was steady. "Yes. I chose him not for what he may become, but for who he already is." The elder inclined his head. "Then the bond shall be recognized." The chamber fell silent for a long moment, the weight of the decision settling over everyone. Daniel felt his knees weaken with relief. He had made it. He had been tested by their ways, and though he had struggled, he had not failed. Sarah crossed the chamber to his side. She reached for his hand, not hesitantly this time, but with quiet certainty. Daniel took it, his fingers wrapping around hers, and for the first time he felt no confusion, no fear, only clarity. As they left the chamber together, Daniel glanced at her, and she gave him a smile that seemed brighter than all the lights of the station. He realized then that the trial had not only been for the council, it had been for him too. And in proving himself, he had also discovered the truth he had been afraid to admit he did not just care for her, he loved her. Daniel had thought the hardest part was behind him when the council accepted him. But in the days that followed, he realized the real challenge had just begun. The Ariseth were slow to trust outsiders, and though the council had given their blessing, whispers still spread among the people. Some looked at him with suspicion, others with open curiosity. Few understood why Sarah had chosen a human when her kind had always bonded among themselves. Yet Daniel noticed something else too. The longer he stayed by Sarah's side, the more their small acts together began to soften the stares. When they walked through the station, she carried herself with pride, her hand in his, and Daniel mirrored her confidence. When they worked together, repairing a failing console, aiding in trade talks, or simply sharing a quiet meal, others began to see what Sarah already knew. Daniel might not be Ariseth, but he was steady, kind, and unshaken in his loyalty. One evening, Sarah brought him to a chamber overlooking the stars. The window stretched wide, revealing countless galaxies in the distance. She stood close beside him, her voice soft. "Do you see, Daniel? This is why our people protect the bond. We believe it links us not only to one another but to the universe itself." Daniel studied the endless expanse, feeling both small and infinite at once. "And you chose me for that bond," he murmured. She turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. "I chose you because you are true. When I placed your hand on my heart, I knew you did not fully understand, but I felt your spirit. You did not need to understand. You only needed to stay. And you did." Her words sank deep into him, and Daniel realized something simple, yet powerful. On Earth, love had always seemed complicated, tangled with fear of rejection or loss. But here with Sarah, it was different. It was not about perfection or destiny. It was about choosing each other every single moment, despite doubts and differences. The bond ceremony was set for the following cycle. It would not be like a human wedding. There were no rings or vows as Daniel knew them. Instead, the Ariseth joined hands over a sphere of living light, allowing their hearts to sync in rhythm. It was said that when two bonded, others could feel it, a subtle warmth passing through the community. The day of the ceremony, the great hall filled with Ariseth of every rank. Daniel stood at the center, nervous but determined. When Sarah entered, the chamber seemed to shift with her presence. She moved with calm grace, her gaze locked on him alone. The elder who had led the trial stepped forward. "Sarah of the Ariseth, Daniel of Earth, you stand here to join as one. Do you both choose this bond, knowing it will mark your lives forever?" Daniel's throat tightened, but he managed to speak clearly. "I choose." Sarah's answer was immediate, her voice steady. "I choose." Together, they placed their joined hands on the sphere of light. At once, Daniel felt a pulse travel through him, a warmth that was not his own. His heartbeat quickened, then steadied, and he realized it was aligning with hers. The sensation was overwhelming yet peaceful, as if two melodies were weaving into a single song. Gasps rose from the crowd as the light flared brighter, flowing outward in soft waves. The bond was real, undeniable. For a long moment there was silence. Then slowly applause spread through the hall, not the polite acknowledgement Daniel had expected, but a genuine acceptance. Even those who had doubted now looked on with softened eyes. The bond had spoken for itself, beyond words or traditions. After the ceremony, Sarah and Daniel stood together by the hall's edge, watching as people approached them. Some offered words of blessing, others small gestures of respect. A few still looked uncertain, but none turned away. The bond had begun to heal the distance. Later that night, Daniel and Sarah sat in the quiet of their quarters. She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Daniel shook his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Not for a second. I didn't understand when you first called me husband, but now I think I finally do." She lifted her face to meet his gaze. "And what do you understand?" That I wasn't chosen by accident, he said. You saw something in me I couldn't see myself, and now, because of you, I see it too. Her smile deepened, and she placed her hand over his heart. Then we are truly one. The stars stretched endlessly beyond their window, but neither of them felt small anymore. In the quiet of that moment, Daniel realized the truth that every story, every trial, every fear had been leading to. It was not about proving himself to the Ariseth, nor even to Sarah. It was about proving that humanity, in its raw and imperfect way, could hold its own in a vast universe. And as Sarah's heartbeat echoed in his chest, Daniel understood something even greater. Humans were never meant to be alone among the stars. They were meant to belong.